the Mavericks. That's myself, Mr. Lee Jackson. We have Picha Neri and Jan Koch. Don't know why I did that accent at all, but hi everyone, how are we doing? Picha, Jan, how you doing?
Doing great.
Well, yes, very
Awesome.
well, thank you. Very
Awesome.
well. It's nice to have the long weekend.
Yeah,
it was too long for me. I ended up working yesterday because I was like, I just kind of got a bit bored of staring at the walls and needed to do something. So I had 3 days of relaxation and then did a whole load of lighting in here, which you can now tell, and did some recording. So folks, if you don't know what the format is, what we do is we look at some websites that have been submitted and we point out what's been done really well. And we also point out what can be improved as well. And thankfully, we have two very honest people on this call. That's Jan and Picha, and they've agreed to tear apart my event website. Let me just give you a little bit of background because I always like to make excuses. We launched that website over 1.5 years ago as an MVP, and it's been the MVP ever since. So we needed to sell the initial event of 2019, which sold, and we had a wonderful time. And it then naturally became the 2020 event. But then COVID happened, and we got busy converting it into a virtual event, which means our website has been desperately neglected. And I need the advice of Jan and Picha to help me out. So in a second, I'm going to hand over to Jan. But no, we also have at least one other website that we'll be looking at today. And if there is enough time, we will be looking at a third. Don't forget, though, to hit us up in the comments, because if you have questions or if you have advice, we will make sure we share it on screen and talk about it as well. So without further ado, Jan, would you like to share your screen and I'll try not to cry too much?
Let's do it. I try to be very gentle and respectful.
I've got some tissues. I'm ready for this. I can cope.
Alrighty, let me know when the screen is coming up.
It's not coming up yet. Oh, I need to add it that way. There you go. There it is. Look at that. That's shocking, isn't it? So, and remember, folks, I am not the speed guy. Just so you know. Just saying.
He just left it so that I have something to say in this conversation.
I don't even think caching's activated, to be honest, mate. I think I disabled it like a month ago because I was making changes to the website.
Yeah, that's what GT Metrics says as well.
Sorry. Here's how not to do it.
Actually, what's most interesting is that this caching is related to Airtable.
Mm-hmm.
And when we go onto the website real quick, we'll see why Airtable is slowing down the website quite a bit, because you're using it for the schedules right here, which is a very smart move to keep things straightforward and easy on your end and organize everything. But it's not the best for speed, but you're aware of that.
Yep.
It's a trade-off that I would be probably willing to be making if that was my website too.
Yeah.
What I would try to do, though, is to see if you can somehow, I've not embedded Airtable on the website yet myself, but if you can make the JavaScript implementation a bit more performant. So, for example, because you have these 3 Airtable blocks, you have the same script embedded 3 times.
Sorry, can I interrupt just a second?
Yeah, of course.
Two questions, in fact, both related. First, can you show us where Airtable is on the website, and also what is Airtable? Because we know, but other people may not know what Airtable is.
Yes, thanks for pointing this out, Picha. So Airtable is like Google Sheets, but on steroids. And Lee is a huge fan for that, and he thankfully walked the WP Mastery group through Airtable a while ago. That's why I know it. And basically what Lee is doing is he's embedding Airtable sheets or databases to deliver the schedule on the website. So these elements right here are pulling data from Airtable.
Amazing.
And that is a really smart move, because Lee is managing all the data in Airtable anyways. So he's saving himself and the team time to not having to change around stuff on the website and in Airtable, but just in Airtable.
Now that is so clever.
I have it on good authority. Amy Keys is watching, and she also absolutely loves Airtable, so she'd be pretty proud of me right now.
Amy,
Carry
if you're the king of Airtable, Lee, Amy is the queen.
There you go. Your Majesty.
Yeah.
But the issue with this is that Airtable seems to not know that there are 3 Airtable blocks.
Mhm.
So it treats every Airtable block on its own, which results in this JavaScript file, which is almost 5 megabytes,
Oh my
being
word.
loaded 3 times. So from those 19.8 megabytes, 15 are Airtable and 10 of them are wasted.
I can't believe that. That's insane. Because I even compress my images. I've never even checked. That's insane.
So that is something that you might have to tweak the Airtable embed code manually for, to not to exclude the share script on more than one Airtable block.
That's insane.
But that's a quick win over there.
Yeah.
And then what you want to look into is my favorite view in GTmetrix, as many people probably know by now, is the waterfall chart.
Yeah.
And here's one thing that you need to really work on is the server response time. So you have in this, I hope you can read the numbers in that tooltip. It takes around 220 milliseconds to connect to your server. Then there's 111 milliseconds to negotiate the SSL certificate, so that the browser of your visitor knows that the traffic to the website is encrypted via HTTPS. And then your server takes 1.1 second to start transferring the data.
Holy
And that's usually a sign that the database is a bit bloated, and maybe you want to look into the server resources and try to scale up the server if the monitoring shows that it's needed. And then what it's also a low-hanging fruit for you is to just enable the combination and the compression of JavaScript and CSS files through Breeze, if you use Cloudways Breeze. And just combine all those files, all those JavaScripts, all those CSS files into one file. That reduces the number of requests quite a bit.
So what I'm going to do then, I'm actually going to select all that now whilst you're chatting and do a quick
don't break the site. It's easy to break the site with these settings.
Oh, I don't mind, because I can just undo it. But
and then you can blame me because I told you to.
Definitely your fault, Jan. By the way, for those who don't know, Breeze is the optimization plugin developed by Cloudways, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And if you are on Cloudways, I highly recommend using Breeze over a different plugin, because it just makes sense, as Cloudways is building the platform. They already know what a caching plugin needs to do better than anybody else for their own platform. So that's why I keep recommending Breeze and falling back to Breeze myself.
So does that mean you can now run this on another screen just to see whether the activity that I just engaged with on the Breeze plugin has made any difference to this? Because I've done the... so I've activated the cache again, because I deactivated it like a month ago. I've enabled minification, inline CSS and JS and all that sort of stuff.
Did you also enable the grouping?
Oh, no, I haven't, but let me do that. Let's see what happens there. So if I enable that as well, presumably I need to purge cache, don't I, as well, again?
Yeah.
So I've enabled grouping and I'm purging the cache.
And we might not see the changes because I'm not sure if GTmetrix is pulling the latest version.
Okay.
But it's worth a test, and it would be a nice example. And
it would be great, wouldn't it? So the site is not breaking, so that's a good sign. So go for it. Maybe run it on another tab.
It's going even up. It's going up.
Analyzing.
I know that it doesn't only happen to me, that I try and make an improvement and it doesn't.
Let me try one
21
thing.
seconds.
Let me try one thing. I'm just logging into GTmetrix in my in an incognito window, and I actually think that this is a really cool situation to do this live.
Yeah.
Thanks for putting me on the spot with this.
Sorry, man.
No worries.
Well, I
no
just
worries.
thought if I'm going to make myself vulnerable here, like show up as a maverick who has got a website that is
Of course.
terrible, then
I need to prove that I know what I'm talking about. Yeah. No problem. So it's good to show this this process of analyzing a loading speed. And
so it might be
analyzing
loading
the
a cached
metrics.
version though on their CDN, so they may not actually know I've made any changes.
Yeah, and it might be that the varnish cache on your website probably needs to be purged too. So we'll see. Sometimes it takes a bit of trying to get GTmetrix to load the most recent version of the measures that you are implementing.
You know, when we say
That's
all
good to
these
know
things,
then. Yeah, carry on.
I was saying, I always wonder how geeky our audience is. I'm sure they are geeky enough to understand everything. Yeah, definitely.
If not, ping me afterwards. I'm in the Cloudways users group, and I'm happy to share any questions. If I'm too technical, too nerdy,
ask questions in the comments for sure.
Yeah.
That's interesting, isn't it? By grouping, that's reduced the request from 208 to 132, and also the page size has gone from 19 down to 4. So it's especially where you've got the repetition of the JS file, that's just crammed everything down.
Yeah, and it's interesting. The JS file is still there, but now it seems to be loaded deferred.
Yeah.
So that is why these 15.3 megabytes is actually GTmetrix says it is not loading deferred here in this script, but the total page size doesn't reflect that. The total page size says that it is not being loaded initially on page load.
Right.
So I would be interested to see if everything is still working as expected. Yep. And you could see that the data came after I scrolled down. I'm not sure if that was visible just now, but the data wasn't
you can
there.
see it's loading as you scroll down. That's much better.
It takes like half a second or something, and nobody will be bothered about that. So that's a great thing in and of itself. And then you have 5,000 images on here, which is which is totally fine.
What?
What?
Not 5,000. I was kidding, but it's like
I was like, what?
61.
61.
We take you literally, Jan.
Yeah, Jan, you got that accent. We believe everything you say.
I'm sorry. I was hiding my hair. I thought that helped already. What helps in GTmetrix is when you apply these filters, and if you want to look at specific things. So I just clicked on that images filter right here, which brings me to all the images. And now I see 61 out of 132
You know
requests.
what? I'm also busted then for uploading screenshots. You can see from those file names that I've made screenshots or I've uploaded WhatsApp images.
Screenshots from Hans and Donata, yeah.
but
you optimize them. You optimize them.
Yeah, I do optimize. That's the one thing I do right.
Oh, you do optimize. Okay. Yeah. You do optimize the screenshots. Okay. You don't upload 2 megabytes of screenshot, do you?
No.
Okay, this is so great that we're washing our dirty linen in public.
Oh, no.
I mean,
what you need to do what you need to do though, Lee, is optimize the images in Airtable too, because it is pulling this image from Airtable, and that is 116.8 kilobytes, which it probably doesn't need to be. But again,
I don't even need to use Airtable either, to be honest. That was just me being lazy at the time. Look at that. There's David Rongeri's there eating food. What a great picture. Yeah, I don't even need Airtable. That was just for speed, because obviously we're managing everything in Airtable. And that's another thing, isn't it, that we often don't think of, where we use third-party services because it's useful, but we absolutely forget the impact. And I should have remembered the fact that I've pasted an iframe in, actually a piece of code which has JS in it 3 times on the page. Therefore, obviously, it's going to be called 3 times as well.
Yeah, and that's the main reason for the fully loaded time, is because it takes that into account as well. And as you can see, like the first 15 images are from Airtable, or the 15 biggest images are from Airtable. So if you have the time, given the situation that you had to adapt very, very quickly, and kudos to you on doing that. I mean, what you're pulling off right now is nothing short of impressive with the virtual event. So it's forgiven that you're using Airtable, but just know that Airtable is probably the main bottleneck on the website.
Yeah.
And here's just one more thing before I let you off the hook here on the technical side of things. Again, you can access all this data with a free GTmetrix account. I'm not showing anything paid here. I'm too cheap to pay for GTmetrix if I can handle everything with this data. So now what we are seeing is the server response time improved by enabling caching. That's good because less files are getting delivered, and the server's using cache versions.
Yeah,
which means that now the first byte is being sent to the browser of your visitor within 350 milliseconds, which was 1 second before.
Yep.
And then the DOM loaded is 2.6 seconds. And the DOM loaded stands for all the elements on the website, like all the text paragraphs, the rows, the images, everything is fully loaded at that point. And after that, the JavaScript execution usually really starts. If you're using deferred JavaScript, it starts after that. And that is why it takes around 10 seconds to execute all the JavaScript files. And then, as you can see here, onload time occurs when the processing of the page is complete and all the resources of the page have finished downloading. That is when Airtable has sent all the data to the browser of your visitor.
That is amazing. I want to show, just because this is a really good live example, what I'd love to show then is the exact settings that I did. So let me
stop sharing.
So you should all be able to see my screen now, I think.
Yeah.
Cool. So literally all I did was all of this was unchecked when it hit 19 meg. So this is a Cloudways server, and this is the Breeze plugin that comes with Cloudways. I checked all these elements, and then I also enabled gzip compression. I didn't enable browser cache because that sometimes screws things up, I've noticed, and I didn't enable cache for when people were logged in. But then if we switch over to advanced options, I also grouped these files with those two checkboxes. What I also did was I ran a database routine. So I select all and did a quick cleanup of the database, which clears up transistence and also clears up trash and revisions and all that sort of stuff that I frankly just don't need. And the post revisions said 813 post revisions over the last year and a half.
There you have the slow server response time.
There you go then.
When I do this kind of thing, I always paranoidly make 2 extra backups before I do anything like this. Am I just being a paranoid or is it?
Well, again, I know I've done a backup because we did a backup this morning of the website. We do. Cool. So we've got 2 things going on. We've got the backup that's included with Cloudways, which is great, which means I can restore from yesterday if I want to. But also for me, like you, I like to have the extra backup. So we've got something called Duplicator Pro that allows me to put essentially a full installable zip version of my website onto cloud storage on a nightly basis. So I know that I'm more than happy. And we've not sold any tickets in the last 24 hours, sadly. Agency transformation, not live. So I knew that if I just went ahead and ran that and screwed everything up live on air, then we'd all learn a lesson through me, and I'd have to restore the site. But thankfully, none of that happened. Like to live on the edge, mate.
And it's good to be cautious with this. Sorry to interrupt, Pitcher. Just one thing. It's very important that you test all the functionality after you're tweaking these Breeze settings, or any caching plugin for that matter. Especially everything related to tracking, everything related to checkout processes, everything related to forms, everything related to embedded content. Exactly. Good point, Lee.
Yeah, like never cache these URLs.
And also what you might have to do at some point is in the Exclude Css and Exclude JS sections, add paths to certain files that your website needs to run properly. Sometimes that's the jQuery.js file that needs to be running because some theme or plugin depends on it. But that's always a case-to-case decision. There's no one-size-fits-all approach here.
That's true. And the best way to test that as well is to go into incognito mode, because if you notice in the basic options, I'd selected that logged in users do not have caching enabled, because it can create issues, especially with page builders. So if you're then logged in and testing your website, you're not actually going to see the cached version or the combined version. You're just seeing the live website as is within the logged in environment. So I always go ahead and go into an incognito mode as well, like you did. That's really helpful. So essentially, I've just made my site go from 20 meg to 4 meg by ticking a few checkboxes in Breeze. Now I can improve the load time even faster by essentially removing Airtable and putting in some nice HTML text boxes. I can just use WordPress to design something that looks really nice, and they can be popped in, which is fine, which will again reduce the load time even further. And then I can compress a few extra images, reduce a few more elements, and I imagine that I can get those grades up. So I think you should all hold me accountable. And for our next Mavericks call, we'll run a test, because that'll be post-event as well. So the event will have happened. So you guys hold me accountable and say, hey, Lee, how did it go?
And don't focus on the grades, focus on the speed.
Yes, you said that. I remember you said that last time. Grades mean nothing because humans don't go, oh, dear, look at that. They didn't group those files together. A human says, wow, this loaded in a second. Nice. Yeah. So, Peter,
exactly.
what about the content?
Making clients understand that, because clients look at grades sometimes. So then we need to educate them that what matters is the speed, not the grade. Yeah. So let's look. So is it my turn now?
You can go ahead, share your screen. Be nice.
I'm going to share my screen. Of course, I'm going to be nice. Share screen. Share screen. And I think the best thing is application window. Yeah. Share. Okay, so I have made this the size of my laptop window, not because I ever use that size, but it's because most people probably use that size. What I notice is that maybe you need a little bit more padding at that size, I would say, because now if I've made it just a tiny bit wider and the padding is perfect. So I just noticed that. That's a really nitpicking little thing. So it looks lovely and clean and so simple. And I love how you've just written the name in a nice font. You know, and we've had chats about branding and about logos. And so often I've said, even though I have been branding used to be my main thing, I've designed loads of logos, but I do also say that failing everything else, the design of the logo is the least important thing. Just write your name in a nice font, and this is a lovely font. So well,
a Geo. It's a premium font that I purchased. So about 2 years ago, I listened to a talk by Peter, and Peter said, when designing a logo, buy a premium font and just go for a typography base, just as an MVP. So this year, when we were upgrading our MVP logo, I just went for this. Yeah, we've got to design a mark at some point, but right now this is perfect for us. So thank you, Peter. You're starting it with a nice sandwich, aren't you? So good first, and then you can put the crap in the middle.
Delighted. No, but silly boy. No, also I said buy a premium font, just because there's loads of wonderful Google fonts. I'm not saying that it has to be, but it just is. The premium looks premium, in my opinion. So this is really nice. There are so many things that work about this. I love how live event looks like the live thing. You know, you've done it on purpose. So great. Virtual event is really clear. What I'm finding, there's a little bit too many colors for my taste, but you know what I'm like. So so there's yellow, pink, green, red. So it might get a little bit confusing. If there's one thing, there's a lot of visual unity. You always do that really well, but at the same time, you're slightly losing it because everything is a bit too much the same, funnily enough. So it's hard for me to tell the hierarchy. Clearly agency transformation is obviously war. How can you miss that? But then the other blocks are very similar size, and there isn't that much space between them. So it's a little bit harder to differentiate them. So you're basically running the risk of everything looking a little bit too much the same.
Just like a big block of text, and you kind of ignore it. Yeah, that's a really good point. I hadn't thought of that at all. Yeah. So
I would make also, I'm just wondering, because the point about this event, for those who don't know, is a fantastic event that if you don't have to be an agency, you can be a freelance, and you will learn so much, because it's all aimed at at improving your life as a business owner, however big or small that is. And so attract high ticket clients, scale the business, grow the team, streamline your work. I mean, you don't have to actually have a team. I have a virtual team of I don't employ anyone. I just use people that help me out, but it will help you. It's a fantastic event. I'm just saying, for those who don't know. So having said that, another thing is, the thing that I was wondering is that you do a lot. I know that you do Facebook ads, don't you?
Yes,
you do. But because the way I feel, it has been the live, the first edition was live and it was last year. And it was a really intimate, lovely event. So my impression is always that you advertise to people who know you anyway, who know your brand, but clearly you're doing Facebook ads. So you're reaching out to a different audience. What I'm wondering is whether you're telling the people who don't know you enough here. I'm wondering, I am literally wondering, it may be absolutely great. Also, I don't know your conversion rates. I didn't ask you that. So, but it was just something that crossed my mind. And also, what's the next goal you want to achieve? That's, I think, a good question. But what's a bit tricky is that then you give 4 answers. So I'm wondering whether you should, instead of asking a question, you should have an affirmation there.
Okay.
Achieve something much bigger, because that's important. That's the important message. Why should people come to this event? So make it a paragraph with an affirmation.
Okay.
The transformation, because you're promising a transformation. You literally are promising a transformation. We always say that, but actually you are.
What it says on the tin. Yeah.
So have a paragraph that says that, and then by all means say attract high ticket clients, scale the business, grow the team, and then streamline your or their, because it looks like the first 3 look like is the second person, and then suddenly it's us. So
good point. Non-native English speaker spotted my terrible grammar. Thank you.
It's always we study the grammar. We had to study the grammar. So, and then another thing that I say all the time, and I'm going to say it again.
Okay.
I love your button. It looks like a button. It looks lovely, but when I hover over it, it doesn't change. You need to make it more obvious that it's interactive. In my opinion. One thing that I absolutely love, because I was thinking in terms of someone who doesn't know all these people, and you've done a great job by having the photos here. Also, you've done a really tidy grid, because I remember when we went over Jan's WP Agency Summit. Yeah. And you had photos, but they were sort of scattered. They were a bit random. And I said, you should have them in a grid. And here you go. I'm not going to make the comment you've got too much going on here, because Lee's using a grid and that works perfectly. So if someone doesn't know who the heck Dave Toomey is, they've been living under a rock, but however, they can click on Dave Toomey
and you get his profile.
And it's amazing. And I love that you put an excerpt from, no, it's not an excerpt.
It's the actual podcast he was on, yeah.
Your podcast he was on. So you're just giving, you're giving confidence, you're giving credibility, you're giving, you're saying, look,
so that's something I'm doing well then.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's brilliant. So, and one thing, what I always do is I'm going to click on register for your virtual ticket and see what happens. And then
explodes.
You get here, and this is great. I mean, I won't go into the form. The forms are a huge. I'm actually getting, funny enough, I'm really getting in the UX of forms, which means the UX of getting someone to fill a form for you, which is not that easy, is it? Because we're constantly asking to fill forms. I won't go into that here because I guess that, and also again, it would be really good to find out the conversion.
Yeah, I do have one thing about the form, and I would love to hear what you think, Picha. I would personally move the email address to be the first field, because then people start entering their email address and you can retarget them if they drop off the cart.
That's a very good point.
Isn't that clever? That's very clever. Very
And I can
true.
do that in cart flows.
And I didn't come up with that idea. I learned it from another CRO agency.
Okay. We'll edit that bit out. What a great idea, Jan.
Nothing I'm going to say isn't. I've all heard it from someone else. So I mean,
The
this
name
is
does escape me.
what is great is that the button, what it says it will happen, does happen. So that's brilliant. It's really not that usual. It's actually usually you click on a button that says that something's going to happen and something else happens. So well done, because you keep the promise. That's great. I think this is about that. I would just make the type bigger. It's a little bit too small for me. And I'm not gonna. I mean, we could. That's way too long conversation of how one could do it differently. But and I am wondering whether this should be a bit bigger, because depending on whether people are already sold.
Yeah,
I would be sold already, because you know what? One of the things people who see me often know that I repeat a series of things, and one of the things that I repeat all the time is, are people ready to convert when they first land on your page?
That's true. And also I'm asking them to register for their virtual ticket, you know, at the top of the fold. So they've not had that much to convince them. They then click on register, and I'm already asking for the details. I thought I was helping with the text paragraph and the images to the right, where you can see me and Sam who look like we're dancing on stage. But I definitely have neglected the content wise, or, you know, again, encouraging people, reminding them why this is the live event they need to, the virtual live event they need to be a part of.
Yeah. But by your means, please keep this. Thank you for having me there, because you're just making the journey so much quicker for those who are ready and have just come to the ticket. Because let's face it, a lot of people would be coming here from Facebook and just going, I just know I want to buy this. And you've made it really easy.
And to answer your question, yes. So for me, this is so the way my Facebook campaign is working is I'm not advertising this event to people on Facebook. I'm growing my audience to the podcast of Agency Trailblazer, so that people are growing to know, like, and trust me. So by the time they get to this website, they recognize my picture. They know this is the event that Lee Jackson's running. So I am very much assuming that most people hitting this already know who that little cheesy dude is at the bottom left hand of your screen. So that, you know, that hopefully is that one step towards they know, like, and trust me for some reason. And they want to come to the event. So, yeah.
Great. So I had got that one right. I know you well enough. I've known that. Now I'm just going to move down quickly. And
this is the bit I hate. I don't like this bit. Oh, no, that's all right. The sponsorship's fine. It's the next bit I'm not a fan of.
It's as if you listened to my adult lessons.
Yeah, left the line, everything.
No, well, left. Which you, we're getting there. No, also saying that when you have lots of content, such as logos is a typical example, they all look different, are different, and are of different dimensions that make them all look the same. The only observation would be that you have this beautiful dark blue as your brand color. Why not use it here? Well, why not use it here instead of the black?
Yes. Okay. Good point. I can do that.
You've introduced like a fourth or fifth color here. Don't do that. Use that blue. Much nicer.
I agree.
Yeah. Great.
No, this is the bit you might not like, and I don't like it either.
Is you that I want someone to say? I'm not even going to say.
Well, it's not left aligned. It's centered, and I'm making people work for it. I get it. I get it now. I forgot that I'd done this.
And also, it's the ragged. There's no anchor for your eye, and the lines are very, 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 very long. So you really are. Yeah.
But the identity value and platform, they're left aligned, and they look good.
It looks fantastic. Everything looks great. Look at that. The rest, the funny thing is that everything else is left aligned.
Yeah. Apart from that. So that's a quick fix then.
Only thing. Yeah. The only thing that's left aligned. So I am just wondering. So there's very little. I mean, I feel, I was kind of nitpicking. This is fab. This is just fab. I know that it makes the website slower, but I'm sorry, it's fantastic. And what happens?
You can click on everything.
What if I'm going to click on Paul Lacey? This is so cool.
Honestly, Lee, I wouldn't probably even remove that.
Yeah. Okay.
I would probably keep it.
Change the name here of the
Yeah, I
image.
really have to stop screenshotting things. I'm just lazy.
The UX is really good, and the perceived loading speed isn't that slow.
Yeah, that's true. And people can download it as a CSV and stuff like that if they want
Yeah.
to, or view a larger version. Like I do like it. I can even add filters as well. I just disabled them temporarily.
It's great. So another thing that I'm going to say is to be consistent with your copy. So if you said register for your virtual ticket up there, you need to say it again here.
Okay, agreed.
I would say it here as well, for the only reason that otherwise it becomes confusing. Are you saying register? What am I usually register could be register for a membership site. You know what I mean? So it could get confusing. Even if it becomes longer, the menu is really tiny anyway. And the same observation about making the interactive elements have a hover state. I think that's also about accessibility, I think, but I'm not an accessibility expert, so I won't say that. But other than that, I mean, it's fantastic. It's really great. And what I'm wondering is whether, and again, it's a matter of experimenting and maybe split testing, whether something like a video on the homepage, obviously not one that starts by itself, maybe. I don't know. I'm saying this, but I'm not sure. It would depend on sort of testing it out, I think. But all in all, a great site, just so nice to look at.
Well, thank you. So, like I said, hold me accountable. Because I can make some of those changes. That's phenomenal.
Will do.
I really appreciate that. It's actually good for us to be able to show up as the Mavericks and say, hey, here's something we've done. And whilst it's so easy for us to be able to look at other people's and offer advice, sometimes we neglect our own work. And that was a exact example of me doing something as an MVP and then never, ever getting around to it. But just having you guys look at that and make a few changes for myself, it's just been phenomenal. Now, we do have another site that we're going to be looking at. And this one is called Carpenter Box, and I am really impressed with this site. So I am going to load it.
Go ahead for that, Lee.
Yeah, I'm gonna just get the. So let's just set up the screen share, and I have to share the tab.
Perfect. While you're doing this, I'll go and answer like two things from the comments. One is from Brandon Dithberry, who had a really good point in testing WP Rocket, one of the most famous premium caching plugins, against Breeze from Cloudways. And he said that Breeze took the cake. So that's a huge compliment for Breeze right there. And then there's Kishore Shah, sorry for butchering your name if I did, who asked if you should use multiple caching plugins, in this case W3 Total Cache with Breeze, and always stick to one, because they will fight with each other. I'm even stumbling for words here, and they will try to do the same things, and that will clash. So always stick to just one caching plugin and find out what works best for you.
Absolutely. All right, so this was the next website that came in, and this is carpenterbox.com. So we're going to have a look through this one together. I'm going to, first of all, attack it from a content perspective. We're then going to pass over to Peacher as well for the design. I already know something you're going to say, Peacher. And also then we're going to look at the speed analysis as well. But just on the content, for me, I was actually really impressed with this website. Although the layout is a little bit confusing and a little bit messy on the eye sometimes, of which I am also guilty of doing that. So it's not like I'm a legend here. What I am really impressed with is how up to date the site is already. Now, if we scroll down to the blog, you can see that they're already blogging about relevant information. You can see here the date of the 8th of April, the 9th of April, with regards to what is going on in the industry right now. If we go into here, planning ahead for your rates of tax, etc., then you can see who it is that's providing the information, and you can also see some really easy to understand and actionable advice. So I really like this. I'm sure there are things that can be done with regards to improving text size and design that Peach will we'll talk about. But for me, who's coming along here to get some information and to learn something, I'm really impressed by this. This is basic information that I can consume and I can understand. There is a visual here as well that helps me understand what it is that I'm looking at. One of the other cool things about this company is that they share their vision. They also show you the entire team, and you can work out who's responsible for what. So, for example, here, we're getting an idea of what drives their company, their mission statement, and I can understand what's really important to them. So if I'm wanting to invest, if I want to go to one of their events, if I want to consume one of their publications or engage them with one of their financial services, I'm actually interested in what they're all about. And this is a great page. It's not too boasty. It's not too much. And it gives you a real flavor for who they are, what they do, what it is driving them, etc. Now, if we take a look at the Meet the Team, a little bit clunky with regards to this search facility, but again, I really love that they are showcasing every single employee, and you can see there's quite a lot of people who are involved. They've got different consultants and directors, and you can instantly say, okay, well, if I want to go into the charity sector and search, then I can filter these down into those relevant people, which is awesome. So I can see that this group of people are probably the people that I'm going to be connecting with. So this is building that know, like, and trust. I know who's involved. So again, this is something I really like. And if we carry that on and say, let's go to cloud accounting, maybe I'm interested in cloud accounting. They've carried that on the right-hand side here. So you've got the Meet and the Team. You can go and view their profile. But I know that if I'm engaging with MH8 Carpenter Box, then I'm probably going to be engaging with Nathan, with Jeff, or with Maurice. Is Maurice? Wait, wasn't that Beauty and the Beast? The candlestick?
Oh, it
Not
is.
sure.
Sorry. The other cool thing I liked as well is, this related information as well. So you could go through to related information, and it's not. I did read some of it. I'm not very clever when it comes to this sort of stuff, with tax and VAT, but it wasn't information. I've only got a lot of good things to say about this. I'll try and make something bad up later. What I like about the content is it's very clear. It's got that information hierarchy that I know you like to talk about. So I can essentially go to the section that I need to read, and it's not an SEO hack. So this isn't just text for text's sake. This is actually informational text, etc. So I really enjoyed just having a good look through this website and just seeing all of this interrelational information. The events here, you can see that they've put some information about COVID and what's happening. They've got a full statement. So again, I thought that's really good, really current. They've not got an old website that says, hey, register for our event here. They are showing that they can move with the times, and they can, they make the relevant changes. And also, if we go back to the home page as well, you can see that they have their announcement straight away. The minute you hit their website, they've got the COVID update, and they've got all this information here, which I thought was very good. So as a content-driven website, I think the key things I like about this is that they have their text is clear. They are current, so they are understanding what is going on, and they are ensuring that people are educated. They're making sure that their content is relevant as well, even their latest posts with regards to tax rates, coronavirus for the academies, etc. They're making sure that everything's relatable to both the company as a brand, but also to the people who are involved as well. And they're the sorts of things that I really like to see in a website. So that's where I'm going to stop for now. I'll jump in again with some other thoughts later as we carry on. Pecha, I'm aware that although I've just said amazing things about the content, that there's probably a few things that you would want to suggest, especially with regards to the user experience and the design. So if you don't mind, I'm going to put your screen up, and if you could take over from here.
Yes, with pleasure.
All right, your screen is there.
So the first time I looked at this website, it was different, and they've made changes. I don't know whether it's following some things that I don't know. However, it's much better, and I completely agree with you that because copy is very much part of user experience, and in that sense, it's impeccable. It's just flawless. It's amazing how much information it gives out, and in that sense, absolutely hats off. It's a fantastic job that they've done, and there's lots that I really like about it, actually, because I like how the cookie, the dreaded cookie notice is actually bright, it's, and I like that it's got the green theme. Now, also you used to have a slider here, and again, you know how much I like sliders, almost as much as center text, and the slider isn't there anymore. What is a bit odd is that these arrows don't take me anywhere. So
you
maybe
have to drag.
maybe-
I found that.
Maybe it's the slider, but just one slide.
It is one slide.
exactly.
Yeah.
So maybe take this slider out, because I'm wondering whether that would slow the website down, which Jan is going to tell us in a minute. So I think that's because the slide, I mean, the COVID urgent, because obviously it was an emergency update that it did with all the COVID stuff, was actually made the website better in certain ways. So well done, absolutely. And the practical advice is so helpful. I'm sure that businesses at the moment are just so grateful for this. So that in itself, top UX, really, really top. Yeah. And actually, I always do this. I always go and click on this. But I definitely change this because it's confusing. What happens, because the whole image looks as interactive because I've got the little hand on home. What happens if I click on it? It's just, it takes, the whole thing is interactive, so that's fine. So that's not a problem in itself, it's fine, but just it's the arrows that are confusing, I would take them out. So the first impression is a very serious, which it has to be, it's proper professional website. The one danger is that it becomes a little bit too uniform. I remember, I think it was more colorful before. This is really nice, don't get me wrong, and see the button does what it should. So when you hover over it, it becomes interactive, it's very clear. The one thing that I'm in two minds about, because I'm saying this and I'm not sure, but I don't know, because these three buttons, all three do a very different thing, and they're all they're all the same. It would need experimenting, but I'm not sure whether people would get confused. Also, one unusual thing is
could that be fixed just with like an icon for each to complement the text?
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Maybe an icon, because you should never rely on one thing only, because here you're only relying on copy for people to see the difference, and that may be dangerous. So the other slightly unusual thing is that usually it's normal to have two navigations, even more than two, but it's the primary and the secondary. Usually things like client login or search or pay online are in the secondary navigation, whereas here they're made super important. So I'm wondering whether that's because something that they've tried and tested and done their heat maps, and they've decided that's the way it should be. Because otherwise, I would say that this should be the primary navigation.
Yeah.
With the primary navigation, however, having said that, the primary navigation should be whatever you know that your user is going to look for first. So if you know that your website is mostly used by clients, then maybe this has a really good reason to be there. So that's always the thing that you have to ask yourself.
Yes, the thought process.
Yeah.
Because on that, I was thinking, then that pay online, maybe part of the services, it's easy for them to say on the telephone, yep, just go straight to our website, and on any page, look at the top right-hand side and just hit pay online, because maybe that's a common request. But I think I'm with you. I'd never thought of it as a secondary thing. It possibly is. Sorry, Picture, carry on. That was just good.
No, that's a really good idea, that, it might be that reason. But even more so, you maybe want it different, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, it's a thought. Then here, it's a very elegant color scheme, but here the contrast goes really, really low. So I am wondering if it would pass an accessibility test, just because this light, it's good to have gray to not use full white or full black, but here you're going very low with contrast. Maybe you've already tested it. Kira, whose website it is, whose company it is, said, "Yep, but I don't know what to." Sorry, because she's watching from Design for Geeks, so I'm monitoring those comments. So I'm wondering whether maybe you've already done and you know that this is accessible. So I would just say that to me is a little bit iffy is the contrast, but if you know that it's
so on
right.
my screen it's quite light, so it's hard for me to read. I've got my glasses on, and I find that hard to read, especially with the gray on gray.
Yeah.
So I would say that background gray should be like F2, and I imagine that's like more of the EEE level. There you go. There's a web developer speaking.
Exactly. So, for instance, when I go here on the drop down menu, when it goes to our vision, I go, yeah, I can really see that. But when I hover over it, but if I don't, it's really hard to see because that's even lower contrast. So, and I really like this. Where it goes wrong is here, because here you're aligning to the left, and that's fine. That's great. Here you're aligning to the center, and can you see how you've got 3 columns? So align to the columns, because otherwise you are making my life difficult to tell the difference, because there's no visible line separation. So while I really like this, don't change it, but just align to the left here.
Yep.
So that goes, and here you can see it again. It really needs aligning. You're going to help the reader a lot. See how much easier it is to read this than to read this. Again, brilliant job with all the information. It's fantastic. I'm going to say again, I apologize to those who've heard me say this a million times. First of all, my colleagues, the Mavericks, the center text again. I know the temptation. It's obvious to think that it needs to go in the middle because it's very important. Yes, but it's not necessarily where the eye goes first. The eye usually, in fact, in the West goes left first. And you are, again, if you use center text, then you have absolutely zero anchor for the eye, and there's no obvious pattern. And people who have different types of, different ways of seeing things, such as dyslexic people, may actually see like shapes. Like I do see shapes here. I see like a vase. So it distracts me from the text. And so that's why you need to anchor text to usually.
I never knew that was a thing.
It's
Wow.
huge.
I see that with faces in cars. When the cars are approaching me, I see a face like that. Yeah.
There's a happy car. There's a sad car.
It's called the law of familiarity.
Yeah.
However,
on this picture, though, do you think, because I mean, as much as I think there's great information here, I wondered whether all that information on COVID was necessary, since we've already established in the header that there is a button you can press to get a COVID update. So it's almost like we should be going straight into welcome to MHA Carpenter Box at this point, and that big block of paragraph is not needed.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
That is a very, very good point.
On that point, Picture, I would love to have your thought on the mobile layout of that page, because there was something when I just looked at the page on mobile, that huge text block really stood out to me.
Okay, I'm going to have a look in a second. So here, see, there's a third menu. So which is it the services or the sectors? No.
It seems to be a combination, because I saw that earlier. It seems to be a combination of it's like another version of the main header, because you've got our upcoming events, replicates events, careers is vacancies. Do you see that? Like the combination of the two, the sectors, our sectors. So that did confuse me at first, but it feels like a high level version of the header menu halfway down the page.
Yeah, so while I think that maybe repeating the menu halfway down the page, although it's sticky to the top, but it may be a way of bringing attention to something that you want to highlight. But if you do that, by all means, keep the same copy. That's the UX of copy. You cannot confuse your user, because I'm now like, oh God, is that different? What's vacancies, careers? It's confusing. So if you want to keep it there, I would not. Maybe put something highlight something specific, but don't do the services and sectors again, because I have it up here. I'm literally seeing it. I'm seeing both at the same time. So things like independent financial advice, great, because you're singling out one aspect, and that's really good. But even how we can help, That's good because it's another way of saying it, and I like that. But everything else, either make it say use exactly the same descriptor, or put something else there because I don't need it twice. And also, it's less helpful because here services gives me the drop-down menu where I can choose with all this between all the services, and here it just takes me, I suppose, to the services page, which I now feel like I need to go to. And in this case, so one thing that I haven't said that I usually say is that there's nothing to do on the homepage, but it's not true. It's not true anymore because now you are giving me something to do. You are saying, see the latest coronavirus resources, and that is something for me to do. So that, in a sense, is already a form of leading me by the hand because you're assuming that that's what most of your customers need at the moment, and you're taking me there. I don't know what happens once I'm there. So I always recommend, part of a much bigger conversation would be, what can you do here to really, what would draw your clients in even more? But what I'm going to do now, I just had a look at the time, and we need to, I'm just going to do this and see what happens if I go mobile. Okay, that's all right, I guess. Does it go any smaller? No, because I've got a tab. So that's fine.
Do inspect view and then preview it as a iPhone.
Yeah.
So if you right click and go inspect.
Yeah.
If it'll let you. There you go. And then just make your screen larger and then click on the little
tablet phone icon.
Yeah, I couldn't even think then. There's a little tablet phone icon that you can see.
I can't see it.
Oh, that's fine because we're faking it anyway. We can see that's fine. So this, if you by resizing that, actually kind of fakes it perfectly fine. So 420 is, for example, an iPhone. Is it an iPhone 420? I don't know what it is nowadays.
Something around that, yeah.
It's 420, yes.
Maybe.
Yeah, so that's about right.
Yeah, so I think this is great. I like this. I love the way the menu works. That works great.
Left aligned. Look at that, and indented. Nice.
What do you think about the different colors, though? That the menu now has seemingly different colors than it has on desktop.
I don't mind that. In fact, I wish that it was like this in the desktop. I think that the desktop should be like this because this is, I mean, not everybody likes white on black, but it's much higher contrast. Therefore, for me, that works much better, and it's super clear. So I think that maybe they should do that. And here, but then as you say, yeah, and this is like really huge. And again, see how can you see the shapes? There's a vase there. There's stuff going on. Often I see a fish.
Yeah, I see the vase now.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm wondering though, maybe there's a good reason why they've done this. There's no further comments from Kira. And then here again, you know, same thing. But I would say that apart from, again, I would just, the arrows keep confusing me. But I want to move it. I mean, there's a lot more that I could say, Kira, but we need to, I think, move on to talking about the technical aspects with Jan now before I bore everybody to death.
No problem. Let me share my screen real quick. So 1 sec.
I feel like we should do lift music whilst we were waiting.
No good reason. I will update.
Oh, look, they nailed it compared to mine, haven't they? Look at that.
Wow.
You know what's funny? You would think that your page to theirs is so much different. However, when you compare the on-load times, they are 0.7 seconds quicker than you are.
Amazing.
So you are not that bad.
Not that bad, even though
the speed. It's just Airtable.
It's just they've got nicer colors on theirs, like green, B.
Exactly.
Whereas I have all these red things.
And they talk more about Corona than you do.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. Just getting back to a serious note here for the past like 2 minutes. Good job on optimizing the website. There's really on GTmetrix, there's not much to say that would move the needle on your end. But what I saw is when we go to the website, you have scripts on your pages that wouldn't need to be there. So for some reason, the website is a bit sloppy for me, and it's responding a bit slow to loading, to scrolling. So it might be like there's some JavaScript scrolling action going on that is messing things up here. But what I wanted to point out is, for example, the Google Recaptcha integration. What do you need it for on this page when there's no contact form? Just as an example. Or the same is true for, I think I saw Google Maps somewhere. There we have Google Maps, 2 scripts with no map on the page right now. So that is something, as you have a custom theme, from how it seems, there's a Carpenter Box theme in the themes directory already. If you have a custom theme, you might want to go the extra mile and see that you really just embed the scripts where you need them. And you can do that in the functions PHP quite easily. Other than that, kudos to building this. Kudos to doing like 90%, 95% maybe even of the work that needs to be done to make the website load fast. But again, just to drive home that Recaptcha thing, we now see the Recaptcha here in the bottom right as it's implemented in the form, and we're not seeing it anywhere else. So it doesn't make sense that Recaptcha is loading on all the other pages. And I assume, no, not even a map right here. So let me see if I can find where the maps are.
I feel like, I was about to say, I saw a map there. Yeah.
Yeah, so those should be the only pages where Google Maps API is loading from my perspective. And you can do that by either querying for a shortcode that renders the map. You go by page ID and then decide on whether the page has that ID and then enqueue the script or you don't. But other than that, for this short time, I think you've done a really good job. And I haven't seen any low-hanging fruits that we could demonstrate just as we did with Lee's website right now.
Well, I did have access to the back end of my site, so we could instantly make those changes.
You had more low-hanging fruits than they had. But one thing just to finish here is Picha spoke about the slider slowing down the website, and you can see that the old carousel is loading some CSS files that you might not need if the slider is not on that same page. A similar concept to the Google Maps and the Recaptcha thing, but that's just something to be mindful of. When you have a custom theme, you have plenty of more options of doing asset control management, basically. You can add that with plugins too. I think there's source control or asset control or something that we covered in another webinar already, where you can decide which files need to load. Asset cleanup, that's the name of the plugin. That lets you decide whether a certain CSS or JavaScript file should load on a certain page or not.
Yeah.
But that's really it from my end to keep this webinar in some form of schedule.
Can I just add one final thing and then shut up for today? Just one thing that, because I keep wondering about that. I'm wondering whether the main target of this website, what the main reason for it is, if it's to get new customers or if you to help existing customers, because apart from now it's in emergency mode, of course, because of COVID. But however, because I've got conflicting information, because the sheer amount of information makes me think you're doing content marketing, you're doing it really well. And in that case, you should have some experience, something on your homepage that entices new users. But then you're doing lots of stuff that is clearly for existing users. So that's, I think, the contrast there, the one thing that you should resolve, because you should get new customers with their website because you're so helpful. And in that case, then maybe there could be stuff that you could do. Finished.
Oh, that's really helpful. Well, before we do wrap up, Bruce, asked a question as to whether or not he said he uses Hummingbird for gzip and caching. So Bruce, I've had one of the Cloudway teams message us, and they've said that yes, stick with what you know. So stick with the Hummingbird if that's what you're using. That's totally fine to work with. However, I'm sure one of the guys in Cloudways will make sure that they comment in Facebook as well with any more information that you might also need. Well, let's do a very quick recap, and then we should probably bring this to a close. So first of all, we looked at agency transformation live, and we learned a lot. We learned that I'd allowed multiple calls of the same file, and just by making a few quick changes in the Breeze plugin within Cloudways, amazingly, we were able to shave off 15 meg and make the site load quickly. And then I got loads of great advice as well on other elements that I could speed up. And also Peacher shared a whole load of advice for color, for having an affirmation paragraph, for making sure that my content's easier to read, etc., and also to add some extra credibility on that registration page. Then what we did was we had a look at the Carpenter Box, and I just glowed about it because I thought that all that relational content, showing people where they're located, showing people with regards to what sectors they're related to and services that they offer. I thought all of that was fantastic. And I've said this about other sites in the past where sometimes you don't know who you're going to be interacting with. Well, Carpenter Box was rocking and rolling that. And they also had great information that was easy for me as a layperson to read and understand enough that would make me want to work with them. So I thought that was awesome. And then Peacher carried on with regards to the look and feel, pointing out some of the color contrast issues in the header there that were hard to read, combinations of different colors, text size, and obviously the slider that appears to not be a slider, which could probably be replaced or removed, and also some of the centralized content that was used and repetitions of menus and changing, different text elements. So it was the same link, but different wording. So, and that was actually highlighted on my site as well, where I'd had multiple registration buttons with different text. So that was another element that you pointed out. And finally, Jan was looking through. They're doing a great job on speed, much better than I'm doing. However, he did spot that things like the map and the Recaptcha was being called everywhere when it's probably not needed and only needs to be called on one specific area. And so I'll make sure we paste a link to a plugin that you can use to do that. I've forgotten the plugin name, but that was on carpenterbox.com. So that wraps up us for today. Don't forget, if you want your website to be checked out by these gorgeous people, that's obviously me, Jan, and Peacher, if you were wondering who the heck I was talking about, then don't forget to submit your website. There is a link that will go into the comments later on so that you can go and submit your website, and also feel free to tag us if you have a question and you're watching the replay. If you are watching the replay and you've got this far, thank you. Can you type the word replay into the comments so that we know you watched the replay and you got this far? I'm just interested to know. That'd be awesome. So all that's left for us to do is just to tell you how you connect with each one of us, and then we'll do the cheesy wave. So Peacher, let's start with you. How can we connect with you?
Oh, I'd forgotten about the cheesy wave. Please connect with me via my Facebook group, Design for Geeks. Very easy. Facebook/groups/Design for Geeks.
Mr. Jan.
Similar to Peacher, I have my own Facebook group called WP Mastery, which also is the best place to get in touch with me.
That's a great. And well, I'll do the same. Check me out in my Facebook group, which is Agency Trailblazer Community, and that's the logo over there, wherever it is. So all that's left for us to do is say thank you for watching. Don't forget, if you've watched the replay, put the word replay in here. And shall we do the cheesy wave? We're going to go now. Yeah, and like last time, I'm the one who can end the broadcast. But don't worry, I'm not going to make you wait for too long. Take care. Thanks for watching.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Stay home. Stay safe. Have a wonderful day. Cheerio.